Aloha. Welcome to Shangri. My name is Navid Najafi. I'm the Associate Curator of Programs and Social Practice here at Shangri, and I'm really excited to be joined by these two amazing creatives kicking off our first conversation in this series at Shangri featuring our amazing community and network of innovative creators, community activists, cultural stewards, artists, iconoclasts, and I'm really excited to be joined by Dr. Akiemi Glenn and Kamakakēhau Fernandez. And before we start, I just wanted to read an introduction for these two amazing guests and talk a little bit about, why we're here today having this conversation. So, raised in the rural U.S. South with Black and Koheri genealogies that tie her to the forest and coastal areas of Virginia and North Carolina, Dr. Akiemi Glenn is a scholar and cultural worker who now lives on the island of Oahu. A linguist who works in indigenous language revitalization, a researcher, a filmmaker, artist, and cultural practitioner, her work engages concepts of culture, race, and belonging at the intersections of art, social justice, and education. She is the founder and executive director of the Pōpolo Project, an organization whose mission is to redefine what it means to be Black in Hawaii through cultivating connections between individuals, communities, ancestors, and the land, highlighting the vivid, complex diversity of Black cultures and communities in the Pacific and around the world. So welcome, Dr. Akiemi Glenn.
Hello.
Now, sitting immediately to my left is an amazing, talented musician. So Kamaka's love for Hawaiian culture and music led him to discover his passion for the ukulele and falsetto singing. He won the prestigious Richard Ho'opi'i Falsetto Contest in 2003 and has since captivated audiences with his incredible voice and skillful ukulele playing. Kamaka has performed on various renowned stages in Hawaii, including the Ritz-Carlton and the Maui Arts and Cultural Center. He has also showcased his talent in the continental United States and Japan. For Kamaka, Hawaii is not just a place, but a part of his heart and soul. He cherishes his family, friends, and the rich culture that he was fortunate enough to be immersed in. Kamaka's dedication to preserving the Hawaiian language and sharing the beauty of Hawaiian music has made him one of the most renowned and refreshing talents in Hawaii. So welcome, Kamaka.
Aloha, mahalo.
So excited to be here in conversation with both of you. And Kamaka, you were recently featured in our 8x8 exhibition, which we have this beautiful magazine of. And, as a part of this exhibition, we invited you to come to Shangri-La and to spend time here and to sort of soak up, the space, the collection, the archives, the environment, the stories, the histories. And you produced an amazing piece of content and the work that you did and this video that we made together. Can we just start by you telling us a little bit about your reflections on that experience? And I would say Shangri-La overall. Like, what is your experience in Shangri-La? Had you been here before this invitation? And did you learn anything new through this process?
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. Thank you for having me a part of this podcast. And, it was actually, I remember going down to the beach just below, and I looked and I up at this place and I'm wondering, who lives up there?
Yeah.
And, just very captivating. You see these, huge beams and, the gate, the fence and all of that. So I really wanted to, I was very curious at the time. And there was the artist in residency that was here. Mm-hmm. Artist in residency, I think was what it's called. I can't remember the name of the group at the time. But that was my opportunity to come on. I was invited by the Pōpolo Project, mm-hmm. and knew a few people that were involved, and so I said, yeah, why not? I got to go and check this out. It's always been something I wanted to do. And when I got onto the property, I was pretty amazed just to think of the history, and we talked about the stories that happened here. Yeah. I never thought I would actually be doing any kind of project here, but being a part of the 8x8 and seeing the different art and learning those stories and the bridging of the cultures is really what I think about. And part of my motivation in life really is to bring a closer understanding of culture. And in that sense, hopefully a more appreciation for the cultures would, be received.
Oh, that's amazing. And the title of your piece was actually Bridging Borders. So it really spoke to that. And the theme of the exhibition this year was source. So your interpretation of that was really, really well presented and developed. Dr. Akiemi Glenn, what you were talking about, I believe, is the Ayodele drum and dance.
It was actually Alsara and the Nubitones.
Oh, Alsara and the
Yeah.
Nubitones,
Yeah.
Yes.
That was 2018 or
Something
so,
like that,
I
yeah.
believe. And, you've worked in partnership with Shangri-La and the Doris Duke Foundation on several projects and artist residencies. And we're always so honored and excited to have you back here at Shangri-La in conversation. Do you remember your first memory of Shangri-La?
Of Shangri-La. It had to be close to 20 years ago, right? I think it was just a few years after this opened as a museum that allowed people to come in.
Right.
I had some good friends who won Kama'aina tickets and said, hey, let's go check it out. Because just like Kamaka, we had been down at Cromwell's and seen this place and wondered what was going on inside. So that was a long time ago, and it's been really wonderful to see, especially in the last few years, how the museum has continued to open up and be more accessible to the community, and how, especially with the programming and things like artist residencies and things like 8x8, we're starting to get the personality of the place out in the community, as well as the community kind of being able to imprint on this place in some important ways.
Yeah, thank you. That's really, really well said. And Kamaka, you spoke to this a little bit in terms of, one of your priorities is really connecting culture, and your own history and story is so fascinating in terms of that. I feel like we all share that in some ways, and especially being here in Hawaii now. So can each of you speak, and maybe start with Akiemi, just in what ways do you see your work contribute to cross-cultural dialogue and understanding within the Hawaiian community and beyond?
I think for me, it really starts with my own story and origin. I feel like I was born at a crossroads, and many crossroads overlapping for a long time, for generations, really. And so coming to live in Hawaii, there was no way for me to find my place here without also understanding what this place is and what is the work at hand. And I was really lucky early on to be connected with Native Hawaiian folks who were organizing to reclaim their land, to restore sovereignty. And that was really instructive, especially coming from where I come from, a Black Indigenous community in the South. So the work that we do today at the Pōpolo Project is really rooted in that, and really thinking about how do we, just as a fact of our existence, born at crossroads, thinking about walking across these bridges between, how do we see those intersections as a point of strength and kind of share what we are able to see from our perspective. So, for the Pōpolo Project, we represent a very small community here in Hawaii. People of African descent are just around 4% of the total population. It's been growing. It's still a small number, but it's been growing in the last 10 years. And we're often seen as people who are not from this place, and that can sometimes be challenging to us, but I think it can also open up some really important dialogues about how Hawaii is connected to the rest of the world. And for those of us who are here, what our kuleana, what our responsibility and obligation is to the place where we live. So that work in and of itself requires us to constantly be in dialogue and negotiation. And I think that also puts us in a position where we have to continue to kind of go back and forth. And, our position, because of our history in the United States and around the world, as descendants of people who were enslaved and who are indigenous to Africa, but living a lot of other places now, we often have to, kind of return to the well of our community and identity so that we are able to do those kind of negotiations out in the wider world, whether that's through, creative expressions like the arts, whether it's through political action. I think we're always situated in a place where we have to do that active engagement with the bridging.
I love it. What she said.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I'm just so honored and humbled to be, that you're, part of that movement and being available, because I know that it could be, it has been challenging in ways too, especially when you utilize the term Pōpolo, right? And how that is. And, there's many different thoughts on that, but thank you for all that you do as well. I wanted to just give you your flowers there. And so my journey, I never really saw myself as different at all. The kids in school, they would tell me, oh, you're much darker than the rest of us. And I never really understood really what it was like to be of African American descent, being in Hawaii at such a young age, 6 weeks old, and everything that that was instilled through my education and all of that. I think from that, that early age, I began to realize that it was a kuleana in a sense. Like I knew it, I felt it, but I didn't really understand exactly how it was going to play out. And then music came along, and just the more reactions and support that I got from people, it was really what brought me to a space of, okay, well, maybe this is what I need to be doing. Sharing the story and breaking the barriers, I guess. And then how is my work important now? I get calls from lots of families that, their kids, whether they're bullied in school because they look different or they don't really know who they are or where to fit in, to kind of break that barrier that, you can do and be anything that you want and stand strong in who you are in all your cultures. And then it's also teaching me along my journey as I try and connect myself a little more to understanding, the African American culture and some of the differences and and a lot of the similarities as well. So it's been really fun. It's just been fun to be able to be inspiring in that way.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm super honored to be here with both of you and to hear your story and the work that you do. And really, you're two excellent role models in our community. And like you were just saying, folks look up to you when you're standing firm in who you are and also so open and so generous with your time and your energy and your work and commitment. And both of you have this strong commitment to indigenous languages. And I just want to know how that has impacted both of your work and your paths that have led you here to what you're doing now. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, the Hawaiian language, this is the language of the Aina here. This is the language of where this place that we are at, that it sits on. So it's so important to keep that alive. And sometimes, people would say, oh, well, you're not Hawaiian, so why are you even, doing this culture? I'm like, well, I live here, and that is a kuleana. It's a responsibility that I have to perpetuate it for the generations to come. Simple as that. But,
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and I think your story is a really profound and important one too. That just knowing you over the years and seeing how not only your proficiency in Olelo Hawaii, but the values that were instilled through the medium of Olelo Hawaii have really guided your path, and I think that's really important to see.
Yeah, absolutely, and to say.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah. For myself, my path to working on language has been a really long, kind of circuitous one. I grew up in Virginia, which is where my family has lived for hundreds of years. Some of my African ancestors were trafficked there in the 1600s. And then on my mom's side of the family, we can trace our indigenous ancestry back to Virginia in the 1600s as well. And so that's when the colonial records started. But we know that my family has been living there for a long time. And so I grew up in a place where there were indigenous names on all the towns around me, but the indigenous people are extremely marginalized there. And so I often tell people that I felt like our ancestors left seeds around until there was a time and place where some of us in this generation had the resources and opportunity to feed them. And so I'm really lucky to be a part of a generation that's still developing, of people who are reconnecting to their languages and cultures. And one of the reasons that I ended up in Hawaii was because of the strength of Olelo Hawaii as a beacon and an inspiration to other indigenous communities and other oppressed communities. I think often when we talk about Black people, trafficked Africans in the Americas especially, we don't talk about how the oppression was also very much related to our language and cultural practice. And so, in the same way that 150 years ago, Hawaiian began to be marginalized and eventually was outlawed in public, that happened to us 300, 400 years ago, where our languages were outlawed. And of course, there's an amazing resilience in the community. People are creative and innovative. A lot of words people use in American English today come from Central and West Africa, whether they realize it or not.
Wow.
Because our people left seeds there too. And I think just being inspired by that kind of cultural heritage made me drawn to this place and attracted to what people have been able to do in the last 50 plus years, really, of Hawaiian language revitalization. And also the fact that it never died here. I think that's an important beacon and inspiration for a lot of us around the world. So I would say that the work that I'm doing now with the Pōpolo project is absolutely animated by that, uncovering what needs space to grow in the same ways that language called me to uncover those seeds and give them a place to grow. And of course, getting to meet awesome people like Kamaka. We were joking earlier that, we kind of met through language in a way,
That's right.
and then have gotten to do a lot of wonderful work and even travel together since then. Yeah.
Oh, so what is the story of how you met?
So it was. I love those kind of organic, if you will, moments. But I was leaving a friend's house, and as I was walking down the driveway, I was looking at my email. And during this time, it was actually February, during Olelo Hawaii month, and I received this email, and I asked my friend, because he was pretty connected in the community, and I said, "Hey, who's this? Who's this? Of this person named Akiemi?" And I didn't really know how to pronounce her name at the time. And he said, "Oh, I think she lives right there." So I was literally in her driveway.
Wow.
But
Yeah.
she had emailed me to ask me about, possibly facilitating a Hawaiian language class.
Yeah. And here we are.
And here we are.
Wow.
This is history.
So you also teach Hawaiian language.
I do, yeah. Yeah. My kupuna, my elders often shared that, it's not just something you want to keep for yourself, although it is a sacred language. It's meant to be taught, meant to be shared.
Well, so you met in this very synchronistic kind of moment, and you've continued to work together. I know you're currently working on a film that has to do with a lot of what we're talking about: race, culture, belonging. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, please?
Sure, I'd love to. I'm really lucky to work with this person who, as you can see, is very photogenic and charismatic. So the documentary has really come together around Kamaka's story. We started working on this a few years ago. We had a conversation. I remember meeting you outside somewhere, and we were just chatting, and he actually came with this idea of telling his story. And when it started, we're really focused on his experience of hanai, of adoption, and telling the story of that as a Hawaiian cultural practice and how it had impacted his life. And the story has grown and expanded and taken wings and become a really interesting, I think a really compelling story of following this brother as he learns about himself, but also shares about who he really is. Sometimes I think it might sound like a story of self-discovery, but I think he knows who he is. It's really taking the rest of us along for the ride. So we start here in Hawaii, And we're traveling to Little Rock, where Kamaka was born, and then on to West Africa, where his ancestors come from. And we're following the thread of music, and especially the wonderful, kind of amazing, kind of serendipitous traditions of falsetto singing in all those places.
Wow.
And learning and sharing. And as he shares about his Hawaiian cultural upbringing and learns from other people and sees those connections there. So the film is called The Heart's Desire. We're currently in production. And The Heart's Desire is not only one of the English translations of Kamakakēhau, his name, but also following his heart's desire, his ohana's desire to, raise him in a way that empowers him to reconnect with his ancestors and reconnect with community. And so I feel really fortunate to be along for the ride. Sometimes it feels like being along for the ride. It's been a really interesting process of just learning how a documentary is made. We have a great team, and Kamaka's at the center of it.
It's quite a chore. It's quite a chore. But I mean, what initiated that was just like, I'm already, in the public's eye for music, and so with that thought of, helping, these younger generations, especially to with their identity or whatever it is, I felt this would be the perfect opportunity for that, as I am going through that journey, and I know where my roots are, but going through my ancestry and really connecting to that. I think there's a much bigger picture, and then again, even though I'm the focal point of this story, I think it's one that can be relatable on so many spectrums, so in diasporas of people. So yeah, I'm very excited. And that's one of the inspirations to the 8x8 as well. Going back to that, when I, the Manu o Ku.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
Ku is actually he has many different representations, but I love birds, just how free they are, and so in that aspect, this is kind of me going out into the world and exploring, and and then also, It's a traveler as well. That Manu o Ku travels over the water, and connects to different places. So that's basically the representation in that 8x8 as well.
Wow, yeah, and Manu o Ku, known as white terns or fairy terns in other places, native to Hawaii, but found in other places around the world. But interestingly, in Hawaii, they're typically only found on this island and on the south shore of this island, and they're the official city bird of Honolulu. And we have quite a few on the property, and there's a mating pair that's used the same kukui nut tree that we have in the private garden area to raise their baby. Yeah. And we currently actually have that mating pair just hatched a new chick.
Wow.
So it's great for us to also follow along on the baby's journey and watching it every day. As the winds blow, it gets a little bit, precarious. It's always causes us anxiety to see that baby up there. But it's such an amazing story, and I'm so happy that you were able to incorporate that. And just speaking of serendipity, the visual artist that shared the gallery space with you, David Shepard, also represented Manu o Ku in his work, in the prints that he designed. So it's always so fascinating to us. You invite artists into these spaces, and then magic happens. And then when it lines up just so perfectly in those synchronistic ways, you can't plan for that.
No.
And I feel like so much of my life has been like that, and I feel like you both probably share in that sentiment as well. And if you're following your passion and pursuing something that you feel a strong calling for, then these are sort of like signs along the road showing you that you're headed in the right direction. Sometimes you gotta read the signs that tell you got to take a left or right, but
right.
Yes.
Right. Makavalu, as we say. Yeah?
Makavalu,
Right,
yeah.
Makavalu.
Yeah. All the senses.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much for sitting down and having this conversation. Is there any questions that you wanted to ask each other? I always love sort of closing out with
I have lots
guests.
of questions for Kamaka. Do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, Kamaka, do you have any questions for Dr. Akiemi Glenn?
Oh yeah, there are a few. I mean, so how has your experience been? Since you here in Hawaii, since you started the Pōpolo project and all of those different activities and events.
Yeah, that's a big question. I think the answer is it's been net positive. It's been good. But it's also been just a tremendous learning experience. I feel lucky that my orientation is, I style myself as a scholar. I'm somebody who's committed to learning for life. So stepping into this particular kuleana has given me opportunities to learn a lot. I think it's been really interesting to see how our various communities receive the work and receive the invitation to come and learn alongside us too. So yeah, I think there's a lot to do, and I think just increasing the visibility of people who, like yourself, who are of this place, who love Hawaii, who are not necessarily harbingers of something bad changing, but are actually here for a long time, have made commitments, are carrying kuleana here, I think is really important. And so that's been really gratifying to see. And just to get to hang out with some of the most creative and beautiful people on the planet who happen to be here.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And there's a lot of rich history, of many African Americans here and their contributions as well. So it truly is an honor, like you say, to be among them.
Yes. I guess one question I have for you is, in the last few years since we've known each other and worked together, I've seen a lot more, I don't know if demand is the right word, but a lot more people in our community kind of clamoring for your ike and your perspective, and of course your leo, your voice. And I wonder, how has that felt for you in the last few years to be asked to bridge, especially when you've been so rooted in Hawaiian culture for so long?
Yeah. Well, it is. I appreciate the support. I mean, and the love and all of that, because there really was a time where I thought nobody really even cared. To be very honest, because I didn't necessarily fit the image of being Hawaiian but yet singing Hawaiian music.
Right.
So it's nice to just be able to be recognized in that sense, and all the hard work that's been put in, and it's also opportunities of growing as well, like anything in life. So it's been a fun journey.
Yeah, well, I've gotten to learn a lot from both of you, actually. And, we're just so thrilled to be able to feature your work and to continue our ongoing relationship with you and the Pōpolo project. And thank you so much for making the time to come down and have this conversation. And we're so excited to share it with the community and continue to support the work that you're both doing, and really excited to see the culmination of that work in this film, in this documentary, and then to see what you do beyond that. So again, mahalo. Thank you so much for coming today and speaking with us.
Mahalo.
Thank you.